We are now going to be moving on to discussing leveraging the power of physical AI with Nicholas Barrowclough at AKCP. We are going to be discussing the sheer volume of data that's being collected at the moment by DCIM and digital twins and how that can become overwhelming. That's why they are traditionally used at the moment to only monitor and alert. We're going to be discussing how through the use of a network of comprehensive sensors, you can leverage the power of physical AI. It's a really interesting discussion because obviously everyone's leveraging AI and how they're going to use their data centers, but now we're actually looking at how we can use it in the technology itself of the data centers. So yeah, nice to see you, Nicholas, and welcome to the event today.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome.
Do you want to give us maybe a quick background on yourself and AKCP as well?
Yeah, so my name's Nick Barrowclough. I'm president at AKCP, and we've been in the data center monitoring business for over 40 years now. Our founder and CEO came out with the world's first network-enabled temperature sensor, and we grew the business from there. We've got now coverage of environmental, power, and security monitoring kind of sensors within data center, and we had a DCIM before DCIM was really a thing. It was just dashboards with sensor data on it, and it's grown from there to be a full DSIM solution now with powertrains and network mapping and asset management and so on. But there were some challenges to deploying DCIMs and digital twins that we've come across, and now with AI tools, we feel like we're able to meet those.
Definitely, yeah. And just to kick us off, I mean, you mentioned there that, AKCP has been in the sensor business for 40 years now, and we used to just want to know whether, the air conditioning was on or not, but now we've got so many data points that are all coming in at the same time. But why is more data actually making data centers harder to manage rather than easier?
Yeah, it's a good question. So there's, obviously in a digital twin, the idea is you're going to create this digital representation of your facility, and you're going to bring in sensor data related to that. We have a product where we have what we call a cabinet rack map, where we have 3 temperature sensors at the front, 3 at the rear, top, middle, and bottom of the rack, calculate delta T. So off of one rack, you're talking about 9 temperature data points. So when you scale this up to a larger facility, that's a lot of temperature, just temperature data. And then you add into that power and so on. You can end up with thousands and thousands of data points, and no one's really actually sitting there looking at this data that's coming in. So the traditional idea has just been you set thresholds and you have alerts. Yeah, if temperature reaches a certain number, I want to know about it. So you end up though with this data deluge, and so one of the challenges has been filtering out what is the important data, what is it I need to see. So you end up with a couple of dashboards in your DSIM with some KPIs on it, and that's good. It's a good start, but we just felt like there's so much more that you can do with the amount of data that's being collected. But it's difficult to do as a human being, there's so much data to go through, and then how does air quality affect the temperature at my racks? Believe it or not, it can. But how do you connect that stuff together, and who's looking at it?
Exactly, yeah. I mean, it's such an interesting aspect that I don't think many people are looking at the moment. And when we were prepping for this, you mentioned digital orphans as a term. And why is it that so many companies are investing in expensive DCIM software only for it to be out of date and useless 6 months later? We talk about technology obsolescence so much in this industry, but yeah, what's your idea on that?
Yeah, well, when you deploy a digital twin in your facility, now you've got to make sure it stays up to date. Otherwise it becomes, as I say, a digital orphan, right? So initially you've got a starting point, you populate all your racks, I've got all of my assets all in the right places, but how do you keep that up to date? Who is doing that? And that just becomes a management overhead. So sometimes these tools that you're deploying, which are supposed to make your life easier, supposed to make your data center more efficient and make your operational parameters easier to manage, can sometimes become a management overhead in themselves. So again, how do you address that? How do you make these tools easier to implement, easier to deploy? Now, a lot of the times, you look at the idea of implementing a digital twin, but then you look at the scale of some facilities, and you've got to map all of this stuff out. So another idea is to use these digital twin tools and DCIMs as a design tool. So rather than having to update this design after the fact when you've got an operational data center, if you get in at the design stage and you use the software to design the data center, then it naturally follows through to now I just plug in the sensors and now I've got the real life sensor data. So you haven't got that hurdle where you've got to get everything entered and get everything right. Obviously, that only works if you're starting at the design stage of the data center for greenfield sites rather than brownfield sites.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the interesting part of it is that you're kind of turning AI hype, on its head at the moment, I suppose, because everyone's talking about building data centers for AI, but you're talking about actually using AI for the data centers. I think one, massive concern that everyone's talking about, and there's a lot of discussions around AI hallucinating at the moment. But when it comes to critical infrastructure, how can we stop that, and how can you keep it kind of grounded in reality?
Yeah, so just give a background on what we've basically done with our digital twin and how the AI plays into it. So you've created this digital twin of your facility. You've got all this sensor data coming in. It's all sitting there. You're getting alerts. But what's the next level? Okay, the alert tells me I've got something wrong. Doesn't tell me how to fix it. Doesn't tell me the underlying cause of that. And once you've got all of this data plugged in, you can then deploy an AI to look at that data. Now, obviously, you have to provide some restrictions to that AI, okay? We're not just talking about just letting an AI model out and it just runs around and does things in your data center, okay? What we're talking about here is we have a technology, say, for example, sensor CFD. So what we do there is we take computational fluid dynamics, and rather than inputting arbitrary values, I've got this many kilowatts per rack, I've got this delta T, we actually take the real life sensor data and feed that into the CFD calculations. So now we've generated a real-time, almost real-time, takes about half an hour or so to run the simulation, snapshots of your data center. So what we do then is we restrict the AI to being constrained by its job is to look at the CFD, look at the data, look at the output of the CFD, and interpret that. So we've had this sensor CFD for a long time, to say about 3 or 4 years. The problem has always been, I don't have anybody in my facility who understands what this picture and what this CFD data is showing me, okay? My data center operator, administrators, yeah, it's a really nice picture. It's got some squiggly lines, and I can see there's probably some hotspots there. What do I do about it? And it's only recently that we've been experimenting with utilizing AI within the data center as an analytical tool for quite some time. And it's only recently that we've really been able to get the AI technology good enough that it can provide real useful, actionable reports. So yeah, as you say, we're turning it on its head. Most people here are talking about AI. They're talking about how do we get our data centers ready? How do we increase our capacity? How do we handle the 1 megawatt cabinets and so on? They're looking at the solutions to the problem. I'd say that we're part of the problem, okay? We're using the AI to try and enhance the data center. So that's basically where we're at. And it's not only with sensor CFD. There's other challenges, as I said, with, say, keeping your assets up to date. How do you prevent it becoming a digital orphan as opposed to a digital twin? Well, one thing that AI is really good at is image recognition. Okay, it's kind of one of the earliest AIs out there, right? Classifying, this is a cat, this is a box. So when you set up your digital twin and you populate all of your racks, you tell the software what's in it. Why not go and take a photo of the rack? Okay, you upload that to the AI looks at it, says, okay, what you've told me is there, looks right, or it doesn't look right. Month later, take another picture of the rack, upload that. Image recognition looks at it, compares a before and a now, and says, that network switch that was there in the last picture is no longer here. but I see it in another picture, in another rack, you know? So it's taking DCIM and digital twin to the next level. It's how do we use AI as an assistant, okay? Everyone's using AI within their work now, right? You know, you've got Copilot and all these things. AI is really becoming integrated to every facet of our life as an assistant. So it should be there within the DCIM as an assistant. You know, it's like having a data center designer, CFD expert on hand 24/7 in your facility, looking at all of this data that we could never process before.
Definitely. And then in kind of a real world example, say for example, you know, you mentioned how we're integrating this stuff into our work. If I was a data center manager, you know, it's a Tuesday afternoon, a sensor tells me I've got a hotspot, but it doesn't tell me why. How does combining real-time CFD modeling with AI change his job, essentially?
Well, instead of spending time trying to find the problem, okay, or what caused the problem, okay, the temperature sensor has told you there's a problem, but it's not telling you where it is. It's not telling you what's causing it, okay? It could be a fan on a crack unit on the other side of your facility that's causing this problem. So how do you interconnect all that data? So a lot of the time will be spent, and I've spoken to people here during the event whose job is to go out and do this kind of data center detective work, all right? If you think about it as the hotspot is a symptom of a problem. What you need is a doctor to tell you what the problem is, okay? I've got this symptom, but what's the underlying cause and how do I medicate it? And that's basically what the AI has become. It's become the data center doctor, yeah? So now you've got an alert, I've got this hotspot, you run the CFD analysis, the AI looks at the CFD, it looks at all of the data that we've got, and it says, well, it looks like this hotspot's being caused by incorrect pressure differential or under pressurization of your cold aisle. And looking at the pressure differences, it looks like possibly this particular perforated floor tile doesn't have enough perforations on it. You need to increase that. We need more cold air coming out of there, or whatever it is. But basically, it creates an actionable report. So you can now spend your time going out and fixing the problem rather than spending your time trying to figure out what's causing it.
Yeah, exactly. In terms of, have you got any specific examples in terms of energy saving potential, for example?
Well, I'll give you an example. I mentioned earlier about air quality. Okay, so what would be the correlation between air quality and energy efficiency in your facility? So, you know, our background really is in the sensor business. Okay, we spent 30 plus years before we came out with DCIM selling sensors to the data center, solving problems through sensor solutions. So if you have an air quality sensor and it's monitoring dust in the air, over a period of time, we see the amount of dust in the air is increasing. We also see delta T across the rack decreasing. So there could be a correlation between that, which is the dust is being deposited on the heat sinks. Now you've got a decreased thermal efficiency. You're not transferring the heat into the cold air streams as efficiently as you were before. So the AI basically is able to now look at all these different facets of the data center, okay? You know, your data center is not operating in a vacuum, all right? Everything's kind of interrelated. So air quality can be related to thermal efficiencies and connecting all of that data together, taking all of these data points. So what we say is we're constraining the opinions of AI with the data and the facts that are coming from sensors. So that's why it's the data behind the AI, right? If you just released ChatGPT on your data center, it would come up with an opinion, right? It would tell you to do something or maybe have an opinion on how you can make it better. But that's an opinion based on no real knowledge of your facility. The real knowledge comes from the sensor data. And previously, as I said at the beginning, you can bring in all this data, but what am I doing with it? Well, now we've got the solution. Now we've got the tools to actually do something useful with it.
Definitely. And well, coming to the close here, but I've got a couple of questions on kind of the human element in this. So, do you think we're heading towards a world where the AI just talks to CR AC units and fixes the problem itself, or still still need that human in the loop?
Well, I still think there's a human in the loop.
Yep.
At the moment, you know, AI is advancing quickly, but you could probably have a computer fly a plane better than a pilot these days, but no one really feels comfortable taking that step of getting on a pilotless plane. I know people are doing it now with cars. I'm still not comfortable with that. And I think a lot of data center operators would not be comfortable with AI stepping in and changing set points and things like that. So I'm not sure that we're quite at that automation stage yet. As with most of us probably who've got experience utilizing AI within the workplace, it's not yet replacing the human, but it is making us more productive. It's making us able to have, crunch numbers a lot faster and come up with solutions quicker. So there's still a human element. The AI makes a recommendation, change this set point, move this crawl unit over there. You've got stranded capacity over here. But I still think you've got the human to look at that and interpret what the AI is telling us and make the final call.
Yeah, perfect. And then just a final question, Nicholas, on kind of maybe like a crystal ball kind of prediction that we could get from you on how AI is going to be used over the next kind of year, 5 years when it comes to digital twins.
Well, I think this is just the start. As far as I know, we're kind of the only company that's doing real LLM sandboxed within your facility. Okay, so we're not going up to any cloud. All of the data stays within your facility. Your data is yours. We're not training our models on your data. So you do need GPUs and stuff to run this on, to run our software on internally. But I think this is just the beginning. I think that you're going to see a lot of other DCIM, digital twin kind of companies integrating more and more AI. I mean, it's just logic, right? I mean, it's coming in, it's permeating every part of our lives these days. So why not have it in there? And in the future, well, that's going to really be determined by how smart AI can get. Is it going to hit a wall, or is AI's ability to get better just limitless? And that's a complete other topic, right? But if AI continues to develop at the pace that it is, then sky's the limit, really. You could just prompt an AI to, I want a data center facility of this many square feet with this much capacity. Design it for me. So it designs it within our software or whoever's implemented this, and then you build it, and then you run the CFD with the sensors, and that validates the design, automating it. Dark data centers where there's hardly a human there. That's ultimately where it could go.
Definitely. It's going to be fascinating to see, where it all goes and where AKCP fits into that picture. Brilliant. Well, if you want to see Sensor CFD with AI analytic reports in action, or you have any further questions for Nicholas, then please drop by stand number 8 for a live demo today. But please join me in a round of applause for Nicholas, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.